And I'm going for the throat here today because I'm the only thing that's standing between you and those really nice green tractor displays out there. Well, I was going to say that, but you don't always know whether or not your audience is that appreciative of those suggestions that they take you out and buy you a... See, you guys could all buy me a tractor and I'd be okay with that. But, I'm here on work and you can't take me out and buy me beer. So, okay. Originally we were going to do a little game and I was going to get you guys going at each other hammer and tongue, and we were going to separate you into little groups and you were going to build yourself a bit of a crop plan, put in some estimates of price and yield expectations and some of the primary cost expectations, the dollars that you put into the ground, and the guy who makes the most money wins. But I'm going to go a little bit more towards the free market kind of thing today, and I'm going to ask you to just shout out, be aggressive, give me your opinions, and we're going to plug some numbers into the Crop Choices tool to drive at. We've talked about yield and we've talked about price, talked about cost. We'll derive what actually pays and what your risk is on that. So, we want you to be aggressive. We want you to engage. So what did I say? Engage. Oh, who said that? I knew the first guy. So there's prizes for everybody. There's nothing on that, Dawn, by the way. Yeah. Just leave it to me to give you a cheap USB memory thing. Nah, anyhow. And not put anything on it. So that's twice as much information as you've got from me in the last 33 years. Spencer's laws of data. Information is the key to making the right decisions. The challenge challenge number one is you guys have most of the information between here and here. For some of us, it's a farther distance than others. For me, it's quite a far distance. Your challenge is learning how to get it out and asking yourself the right questions. So anyone can make a decision given enough facts. That's usually me, because I'm never done gathering information. Perfect manager can operate in perfect ignorance. That's my wife will never see this video, right? This is what this is what she says about me. Something about ignorance. So you make choices, and you make the right choices based on the information, the knowledge, skills, tools that you have in front of you. Every presentation you will see me do has this. Have faith in the choices that you make. You might make a different choice if you have different information, and that's part of why I'm here today. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about hybrid spraying and CPS. Address the question, the simple question, in which one should I grow? We're going to use the Crop Choices tool to evaluate that. And top of your heads, what's the yield difference that you see typically on hybrid versus CPS wheat? Shout it out. 10%. 10%? Who said that? 10% higher on CPS than... Now we haven't gotten into the risk part yet, but we're going to get there. Based on that, does that drive you to grow CPS wheat? You get 10% more bushels.
Can't buy the seed right now.
If you could buy the seed. It's always somebody. Oh, geez, look at this. We'll go until we're all done. Price on CPS is typically how much? Typically, how much less? 10, 15%? 10, 15, oh geez. I don't have an endless supply of these in my pockets. 10 to 15% less. Based on that, make you less desirous of growing CPS wheat. So higher yield, is there a price discount? Right now, what are we running, about 5% under on CPS? It's a lot tighter than we generally see. How are the seed, fert, and chem costs on CPS, the way you would grow it here? Are they generally higher, lower, about the same? Same?
A little more fertilizers.
A little more fertilizer? Should I ask Ross?
You listen to him forever.
Yeah.
That's not true. Actually, usually when they want manure information from me, they come to me because they know they're going to get the real shit.
Well, oh, this is going to get good. See, I get the manure questions all the time because everybody comes to me for the BS. But anyhow, here's what it comes down to. We get price messages, we get yield messages, we get cost messages, and rarely do we put them all on the same page with our expectations of those things that we're going to get, because we're good at doing the research, right? On our place, we know what will grow, what, where, and when, but rarely do we put it on the page and project out what our profitability is and what the risk is. Oh, top of your head, what's more profitable to grow, canola or oats?
Canola.
Not necessarily. Just to highlight this point, and we're going to move on here. Ran some numbers based on some of the pooling that we did in central Alberta, different soil zone. Point is you got to check. If you're good at growing oats and just average at growing canola, you make more money with less risk. More money with less risk growing oats than canola. I'm looking at these numbers coming out, and I'm looking at them. I'm looking at again, saying, how is this possible? All other things being equal, another great excuse by a great economist. All other things being equal, we're seeing oats disappear off the face of the map. Guys taking huge financial risks, putting dollars in the ground in canola. And don't get me wrong, there is a real place for canola here. But there's a great financial risk putting canola in the ground, and we haven't even entertained the notion of crops that we grow without even rolling out of bed in the morning. So ask yourselves the same question. So, and you brought this up, and I didn't put this one in. I actually hid this until you started talking about costing. It's the guys who buy your product don't care what it costs you to produce it. The people who eat the commodities built out of, or eat the products built out of the commodities that you grow don't care. Why would they? Because when you go buy products, inputs, you go where it costs you the least money, all other things remaining equal. Markets have no souls, okay? So it's up to you then, knowing that over time real prices do decline. Strategically then, you must do something in your business in terms of what and how you grow in the long term, the machinery you use, the inputs you use, the crops that you choose to grow, to reduce your long-term average cost per bushel at a greater rate than we see prices decline over time. It's simple math. So there's a goal for you. Blah, 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 blah. I'm bringing up this just to show you that the route to success is creating and using your own information and taking a look at what you might expect to get to earn on average per commodity and in total, and then managing the risks associated with that, at least on the production and pricing side, those things that you A, can either control or B, strategically engage in where you think the prices might be better. So let's build a demo case, and I'm going to get through this. And actually, we're going to flip over to that thing, and I have a sample case on there. And just, this is the test after class for you, is do you remember how to change things in crop choices? That's okay, I'll do it. So, simple demo in crop choices. Who's used crop choices? Oh, you already have one. Who else has used? Look, see, there's another guy. He's used crop choices. I could have put crop choices on here. Go get it. Oh, well, that's not going to be any good. So you get to keep one of those if you can untangle those, and I'm going to throw yours back there. You start in, you put in your legal location. Thank you. And all that does is gets you, well, lets the program run and plugs you into crop insurance rates. So you put in your legal location, says, here's where I am. And you label a scenario. Step number 2 is to actually put in your crop plan, and I did this example. I wanted to show you guys some of the fundamentals of using this very quickly. You put in the fields that you're going to grow, what you expect to grow, price and yield expectations. Remember these questions. I expect the yield or the price most likely will be. So you're going to ask yourself the question, I expect the yield on CPS on that piece of ground to be. Can you write these down for me, please? Thank you. Got a piece of ground in mind. I expect the yield on CPS wheat on that piece of ground looking out into this upcoming crop season to be how many bushels an acre? 75.
Oh, I got one.
Oh, you got one? We'll pass it over to the next person. See? You benefit from his jumping in. You'd be surprised if the yield was higher than 90. So I'm not going to throw you one. And you'd be surprised if the yield was lower than 30. Really? Because it's not the worst yield you can get, but you'd be surprised. Anybody else have any other input? So we have expected at 75, high of 90, and low of
36. But you could get hailed out, so you should actually have the hail insurance.
la 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 la. Let's not get carried away. Yeah, you could.
Take his USB away.
How about hard red spring wheat? Are we dryland here or irrigated on these estimates? Pick one.
Irrigated.
That's irrigated. Okay, we're going to have to change some things in the sheet. But wait a minute. Do you grow that hard red spring on irrigated ground?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to put you on the spot again. Same piece of ground, you think most likely the hard red spring wheat yield will be?
Most likely?
Yes.
80.
80.
You said 75 for CPS.
75 for CPS versus 80 for hard red spring.
80, 85.
So it's going to be higher for the hard red spring than it is for the CPS. It's okay. Is anybody else? We've kind of worn his brain out already. Anybody else want to? I'm kidding. You want 100 for the CPS? 100 for the CPS? You can go help farm at his place. And if you can just do the percentages up and down on that. So 100 for the CPS, does that sound okay?
I'm not giving you any input.
So hard red spring, then we're back to what's the most likely yield?
Hard red spring, 80.
80. Be surprised if the yield was lower than 40. And surprised if the yield was higher than? Sorry? 100? Jesus, I'm not passing out my treats. And I'm going to run, oh geez, now I'm not going to get any input on pricing. You're going to ask the same questions on prices, and this will all come easy for you guys because you've done all your forward pricing, you know where you're going to go. You think most likely the price on your CPS this fall will be. Oh, you know I'm at a USB stick, so nobody's going to answer.
My carrot today has got 680 for fall and for CPS and 740 for hardware.
You like that?
That's off my carrot.
Good place to start, 740 for hard red and 680 for CPS. High side on CPS, you'd be surprised if it was higher than 720 and lower than 650 on the hard red spring. High side of, sorry, the mean on the hard red spring from Viterra was 740, so we'd be surprised if it was higher than 840. Somebody give me 9, give me 9, give me 9, give me 9. 840. But you'd be surprised if it was lower than $6. Okay, we kind of jumped ahead a little bit here. Then we go ahead. Now we've done all the yield and price stuff. And you go ahead and you plug in your own costs, okay? In Crop Choices, here's this sample demo case. We got John, Jim, Jack, Jerry, and Joe's fields. And he's growing, he's got wheat, canola, barley, field peas, green feed, and yields and price estimates. Here's all his cost estimates. This is where you put in what you would do. Now, for the crops that we talked on an irrigated farm, you would have seed cost per acre based on seed rate and seed availability for CPS and for hard red spring. You know what your fertilization rate would be, and you can work that into a cost expectation. Same thing on a chem treatment. And you know you may come back later in the year, but you got a pretty good idea what you're going to budget in for all those. If you come work with me on the Agri-Profits program, I'll work out each of these lower level costs for you on your crops, so that when you put in fuel, oil, and lube, irrigation, fuel, and electricity, repairs and maintenance, blah, 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 these are you. Because I see $20 an acre variances from crop to crop, field to field in a heartbeat. $20 an acre is a big, big difference. And if your profit is $18 an acre, you just chose to grow a losing crop, right? Anyhow, you run the simulation, you'll take a look at the results, you get tables, you get a couple different kind of charts. And Crop Choices not only tells you the average, but it'll tell you the variability in your profitability. Now you've gone past those simple questions of, I think CPS gives me a better yield, maybe I should grow that, but I'm not sure because CPS tends to be a little bit less, and you got all these things in the air and you don't know whether the cost of it going in the ground is a bit higher. Let this thing calculate it for you. Do your work in your yield and price expectations to get the variability. Here's a table, and you get an expected gross margin here of this much. And you get this dot up in the corner of the screen that means absolutely nothing. And you get this fancy curve that says 50% of the time I'm going to have a gross margin on that crop plan of $12,000 or less. In my examples, I've done it for 100 acres, so that we can divide all those numbers by 100 and it'll tell you how much you got per acre. Because I'm just that smart. Okay. Sorry I don't have any more memory sticks to cause you to laugh. To give you some idea how this varies, I've gone in and I played with this a little bit, and I said, but you know what? There's a scenario where I might take a look at a little bit more risk. I change that, and I get different curves. So the first one, it stands pretty much straight up, means there's a higher probability that it comes in that middle ground. When I've got greater variability in prices and yields, you see it starts to stretch out a little bit. And this one here, I've added a little bit of costs, and we get this kind of view here. This one has the same average income as this one. This one here is more risk than this one. Here's the cardinal rule. If they both have the same average income, I always choose the one that's less risky. This one here has the same risk as this one, but this one, this budget, returns you more on average. You always choose the one that gives you the most income at the same risk. And now we're experts at running crop choices because that's all there is to it. So, which do I grow? We've already collected the information on expectations and prices and yields in those distributions. Here's some things to think about. Input, use, and practices define those per acre costs. So when you're going through and putting your budget information in, we're here budgeting out what we're going to put in the ground this coming year, right? I expect to put this much seed, fert, and chem, and it's going to cost me this much money. And I have price and yield expectations coming out of that. I know if I apply so much fertilizer, I expect to get so much yield because these guys actually got funding for their sorry about that, Ross. So per acre costs turn into a yield opportunity, which will drive the up and down side on your yield distribution. And what you put in the ground actually has some implications on quality. So you may want to adjust some of your price expectations if any of your inputs are going to affect quality. Blah, blah, blah. We did all that. Quick point on where do I get this information? And I get this all the time because not many people have used this tool. It's very simple to use. But the first question you ask is, how do I know what the upside and downside are? You start to look at the literature, for instance, and look for some of the plot data. Coefficients of variation is standard deviation divided by the mean, which tells you if I have an expectation of an average yield of this much, 2/3 of the time it's up by so many percent and down by so many percent. If it's equivalent, right? If it's symmetrical, if the upside is the same as the downside. If you think there's stuff that pulls the downside more than the upside, adjust it accordingly. But now you have a piece of information at hand that actually gives you an idea based on a comparable of what the upside and downside are. You have some of the average yield stuff coming from the trials. But we know that what you get in average yields in trials is not what you get on your place, so you want to modify those averages with respect to the relative sort of gap that you see from the plot data that Ken shows you and what usually happens on your farm. And it's a trial and error kind of thing until you start to get really good at it. Oh yeah. And what did you do last year? And did Jason send you the stuff from JP? Okay, it's coming. Smoky Applied Research has just done some work on crop rotations, because some of the concerns they have are their canola or wheat rotations. And what they found is, this is the strictly canola rotation, this is the strictly wheat rotation, and there's a number of options that they used basically, there was a yield dampening effect on multiple years of the same crop going in. And when you went to one other crop in, the average yield that they observed started to jump. And I know you know that. But when you're setting up a rotation and you're saying my average yield expectation is based on what I see in these ones here, instead of these ones here, you might be overstating your yields. So what this is saying is there's at least a couple of options that I would use. 3 and 4, wheat, canola, 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 wheat, outperform both on an income and risk point of view this straight canola one. Many of the options outperform the wheat options. So be aware of what you grew back there before, right? There's a reason why we monitor our yields in our field. So here's where I was going to get you all fighting. We're going to do the shortcut here, and I'm going to quickly flip over, and I can handle this. And if you got any questions on this, this also gives you the opportunity to sneak out of the room while I'm not looking. So we had, Ken, if you could interpret your notes. Oh, don't want to do that. And I'm going to go in here to irrigated. And here to irrigated. And the worst possible yield on CPS was,
Oh, that's the top one.
yeah, 60. Oops, that's way more than I was ready for. And the best possible yield on CPS was 120, but most likely it was going to be 100. And we're doing worst price of, have I got that in the right order? 6.5. Best price of 720. And most likely it will be 6.8. And I'll just go ahead and, oh, somebody did a good job of estimating in my previous example. And I'll quickly flip over and do the other. Those are all the same. And I'm going to go to scenario 2. And this is, oh geez. This is my hard red spring one. Let's see if I can do this. And the yield on the hard red spring irrigated okay, worst possible yield of 40, best of 100, most likely is 80, and worst price of 6, 8.4, and 7.4. Are we good there? And we've assumed that we've come down here and put in all the correct costs per acre.
Did you mean to put the same yield?
Each of these fields, this is all hard red spring and the other one's all CPS. So which do you think is more profitable? CPS? Oh, these are 2 wheat fields. The other one's is 2 CPS fields. When you do crop-to-crop comparisons and crop choices, and you only have 1 crop field in, it kind of implodes because it's a long story. So if you're going to compare CPS to hard red spring, you have to have a scenario for CPS and a scenario for hard red spring so that it can do all the right math. So who thinks that CPS is going to be the most profitable? Yeah, he does. Everybody else thinks that hard red spring is going to be the most profitable? And we're going to run this one. We're going to go back. Under this, how about that? It forgot my prices and yields. We're going to have to do this again. Sorry, guys. Worst is 60. Best is 120. Most likely 100. And worst is 6.5. So here we are. This is the CPS one, and it's averaging average gross margin of $317 an acre. That sounds right. Jeepers, that sounds a little high to me. We're going to come back and we're going to go to this one. And this is the hard red spring. And under these circumstances, this is lower income, higher risk. Was it you that said grow CPS wheat?
I don't know why, I just said it just because I...
Well, because he has this innate ability to crunch all those numbers in between his ears.
I wish.
Now, one of the things we know to be true about this is the wider the gap becomes on the pricing, this will start to disappear. So there's very little premium on the pricing side. What you can do in your farm in terms of cost control and cost management, that's going to dictate the first layer of what you will do in terms of choosing CPS. We can run a ton of scenarios here, but this sends a message of, before you walked in today, did you think you'd be better off growing CPS than hard red spring? Yes, no. Yes, I see a few nods, yes. I see a no. He thinks that I'm the BS guy right now. But now this incents you to go back and do the math on your place. And there will be a righter answer for you compared to him and him and him. But this is very much dependent on what happens in your place. That's a fairly large difference in well, here we have, so that's $200 an acre to $300 an acre gross margin. Yeah.
You talked about before, like, there's also the grade variable risk. I guess I'm wondering, is it's a far steeper drop from a 1 red 13.5 to a 3 red as far as dollars as it would be, say, the same frost hit or whatever, a 1 CPS down to a 2 CPS.
It's
Because of those things too. So, you know, how would you say it's necessary to have to again do some pricing expectation adjustments?
This is the critical part, because I'm here now saying I'm thinking of putting in CPS wheat or hard red spring wheat that I'm going to harvest in the fall, and I typically get this kind of grade on that product this fall. This dictates how I set my price expectations.
Don't set it as one,
No.
if traders get a two.
If I quite frequently get a lot of variability in grade, then I'm going to start to expand my upside and downside prices. If I very rarely get, if I always get a 2 or I always get a 1, then it will be much more compact relative to what you see the variation in the upcoming prices to be.
Calculate your variability risk.
And so that's $100 an acre variance if we inputted this correctly. Now my original one, I'm just going to do this here. We're going to go back to this, save this as that. And I'm going to, I did a quick and dirty dryland one on some prices and yields that I had put together. And number 1 here is hard red spring, and number 2 here is the CPS example. Now, keep this in mind. This is really critical. I'm the cattle guy who knows about this much about growing wheat and knows even less than that about what the pricing should be, but I can run a budget. So my estimates were fairly rough, but this is the picture that we got on dry land with a little bit different price and yield expectations. And here on 100 acres, yeah, there's something goofed here. We ran this is about $54 an acre, and this is about $90 an acre. This is hard red spring, and this is CPS. So this still says grow CPS, but the price differential was fairly slim. This one here, if this much difference in risk makes no difference to you, so the closer this one shifts over this direction, the more likelihood is you're going to just choose the higher, the more profitable one.
You have to stop.
Yep, I'm done. So go get Crop Choices off our website. We're busily updating some of the benchmark costs to go into it, which are going to change anyhow. We just received some of the premium rate calculation files from AFSC, so the upgrades soon will have all that stuff. But if you run your crop plans through this will get you 95% of the way there. Questions? Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Dale.